Powerhouse Films Indicator line has quietly become one of the most important labels in physical media, not through scale, not through hype, but through consistency. This is a British label built on curation, deep catalogue titles, properly contextualised, restored with care, and encoded to a very high standard by Fidelity In Motion. Where others stick to the obvious, Indicator leans into the margins: British cinema, Columbia back catalogue, obscure studio titles, and more recently, a serious run of Jean Rollin restorations that have elevated material most labels would overlook entirely. The through line is control, strong authoring, thoughtful extras, releases that feel considered from start to finish. So in this video, The Last Disc on Earth recommends 10 Indicator titles that show exactly where the label excels and why it's become a reliable part of any serious collection. The Swimmer is a surrealist catcher in the rye for the Martini set, a suburban odyssey that treats the backyards of Connecticut as a jagged, psychological frontier, the American dream as a liquid graveyard. Featuring 52-year-old Burt Lancaster in the shape of his life, attempting to, inverted commas, swim home via a river of interconnected neighbourhood pools. For the disc enthusiast, Indicator put out a very nice package, sourced from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. The presentation captures the saturated greens of the Connecticut summer and the shimmering, deceptive clarity of the water, with incredible precision and satisfactory mid-60s filmic grain. However, a film of this visual texture and historical weight justifies a native UHD. The 4K scan exists in the vault, so it's only a matter of time before a studio sees fit to reward the film with the top-tier presentation it deserves. The Swimmer is a journey that begins with the brassy confidence of a man who owns the world and ends in the cold, rain-slicked ruin of a life built on surface only. Burt Lancaster delivers the performance of his career, weaponizing his own legend. At 52, he is a specimen of terrifying athletic vitality, a marble statue of mid-century masculinity, navigating a world of upper-middle-class ennui. But as the sun dips, his physical peak becomes a mask for a hollowed-out soul. Lancaster is the ultimate unreliable narrator, treating these hedges and diving boards like the Wild West, but with every pool he crosses, the hero narrative fractures. We begin to realise we aren't following a titan returning to his kingdom, but a ghost haunting the scenes of his own social and moral crimes, the suburban sin of pretending the party never ends. The film's production was as fractured as its protagonist. Originally directed by Frank Perry, whose hallmarks of clinical alienation are everywhere, it was eventually finished by an uncredited Sidney Pollack. This friction between Perry's cold observation and Pollack's more traditional dramatic polish creates a unique, unsettling energy, perfectly punctuated by Marvin Hamlish's score, which moves from adventurous, bittersweet confidence into a minor key mourning that reflects Lancaster's slow motion collapse. The Swimmer is a haunting, cold-blooded deconstruction of the American myth, a film that buries you in the final hour of cocktails where you've outstayed your welcome with the neighbours. It is essential, uncomfortable and devastatingly beautiful, and easily Lancaster's best performance, reminding us that the distance between the pool diving board and the abyss is much shorter than we think. That's all from us at The Last Disc on Earth, and remember, come the apocalypse, physical media will prevail. At first glance, Hitch-Hike, or Autostop Rosso Sangue, looks like a standard issue Italian poliziotesco thriller. You have the desert roads, the kinetic violence, and a menacing David Hess doing what David Hess does best. But scratch the surface gently and you find something underneath that's a far more uncomfortable reality. Hitch-Hike isn't just a thriller, it's a damning, blood-soaked indictment of the fragile marriage contract. The setup is a pressure cooker. Franco Nero and Corinne Clery are a married couple driving across the American West in a cramped trailer. Nero is a cynical alcoholic journalist who treats his wife with a simmering verbal cruelty that is often harder to watch than the physical violence that follows. These bickering spouses are already in a state of domestic collapse when they pick up a hitchhiker, played by Hess, who, unbeknownst to them, is a bank robber on the run. What follows is a brutal three-way power struggle. Hess subjects the couple to a gauntlet of humiliation and terror, peeling back fragile layers of Clery and Nero's marriage. Faced with this, Nero doesn't conform to type and become the heroic protector. Instead, the external threat of a murderer only amplifies the internal rot of their corrosive relationship. Corinne Clery is the film's essential anchor, navigating the predatory violence of the intruder while enduring the pathetic, wounded ego of her husband. Clery deploys powerful femininity despite being labelled the victim across most of the movie's running time. Nero is fantastic, primarily because he refuses to be likeable, playing a man whose masculinity is a fragile, toxic ornament in danger of shattering under pressure at any moment. Visually, the film looks more Road Warrior than Easy Rider. It's not a beautiful trip through the vast canyon highways. There's a very slight hint of apocalyptic overtone across the film's subtext anyway. Juxtaposed with the visuals is Ennio Morricone's score, uncharacteristically upbeat and pop-infused, creating a jarring, ironic contrast to the harrowing events on screen. For the collectors, Indicator have restored Hitch-Hiking 4K UHD, which is its worldwide premiere. The encode is tight and bitrate generous, preserving the grainy grindhouse soul without sacrificing the clarity of the desert vistas and aggressive fury at the film's core. Ultimately, this is a mean, cynical odyssey that asks, who is the real victim when the person you're married to is a stranger? Hitch-Hike, a movie that dares suggest the real danger isn't the man with the gun in the back seat, it's the partner sitting in the passenger side. That's all from us at The Last Disc on Earth, and remember, come the apocalypse, physical media will prevail. Dead Kids, released in the US as Strange Behavior, is a fractured hallucinatory collision of genres, standing starkly as an original anomaly in the early 80s horror landscape. Written by Bill Condon and transplanted to New Zealand masquerading as suburban Illinois, the film bypasses standard slasher tropes in favour of a cold, clinical sci-fi nightmare. It is an offbeat, deeply idiosyncratic work that thrives on a pervasive sense of wrongness. While the narrative is undeniably messy, it possesses a hypnotic, slow-burn energy that has sustained its status as a premier cult favourite for over 4 decades. The Indicator 4K UHD offers a formidable, technically superior presentation that respects the film's grainy, low-budget origins. Sourced from a new restoration, the image is impressively sharp and filmic, resolving the fine textures of the clinical laboratories and Midwestern disguises with archival precision. Crucially, the colour palette remains balanced and natural, avoiding the oversaturated pitfalls of modern digital grading. The set includes both the Dead Kids and Strange Behavior versions of the film, providing a stable, high bitrate home for a production that has historically suffered from murky, third-generation masters. The story unfolds in the quiet town of Galesburg, where a series of brutal, inexplicable murders begins to decimate the local high school population. Detective John Brady, played by Michael Murphy, suspects a link to the local university's psychological research department, a facility haunted by his own past. The narrative tracks his son Pete, played by Dan Shaw, as he is lured into a series of behavioural experiments in exchange for quick cash, unaware that he is being conditioned for something far more lethal. Director Michael Laughlin operates under significant budgetary constraints, often relying on static, wide-angle masters where entire scenes play out in a single unblinking take. This creates a stagey, almost wooden atmosphere during the domestic sequences, yet it inadvertently enhances the film's uncanny, detached tone. The film is stolen by Fiona Lewis, who portrays the mysterious Gwen Parkinson with a cold, predatory menace that pierces through the film's low-key rhythm. Her performance acts as the narrative's surgical steel, cutting through the slasher mechanics to reveal a story about mind control, parental betrayal, and the terrifying anonymity of suburban life. The film is a quirky, unsettling document of an era where horror and science fiction were beginning to bleed into one another. Dead Kids is a jagged entry in the canon of regional horror, even when that region is half a world away from its setting. Indicator has delivered the definitive 4K edition, ensuring that director Laughlin's strange vision is preserved with total clarity and technical restraint. A fine release for an enduring early 80s cult classic. And that's all from us at The Last Disc on Earth. Don't forget to subscribe, and remember, come the apocalypse, physical media will prevail. If The Graduate offered the fantasy, Carnal Knowledge delivers the hangover. Director Mike Nichols pursues the false promise of 60s liberation into a dead end of emotional bankruptcy. No fulfillment, just a cold, escalating discomfort. Dissecting the American male ego with a forceful ideology, Jules Pfeffer's script traps two men, Jack Nicholson and Art Garfunkel, in a decades-long pursuit of an intimacy they are fundamentally incapable of grasping. Carnal Knowledge isn't romantic, it's a post-mortem, examining not if love survives, but the wreckage left when it doesn't. The Indicator 4K UHD provides the necessary restraint, a controlled, faithful presentation, void of digital interference, sourced from a new Studio Canal restoration, and stabilised by a Fidelity In Motion encode. The disc rejects modern revisionism, no artificial sharpening, just a raw, stable reality of the original photography. Grain remains consistent, organic as one would expect from Indicator. Detail resolved within the frame, skin textures, fabrics, the oppressive flatness of the interiors, without pulling focus from the performances. The film barely received any Blu-ray releases around the world, so this 4K UHD is a very welcome double jump. Carnal Knowledge is built on reputation, not evolution. Jonathan and Sandy drifting from youth into a hollow middle age, dragging the same toxic patterns, the same fractured conversations, the same identical failures across 20 years. Jack Nicholson's Jonathan, magnetic, articulate, utterly vacant, intimacy treated as a conquest, followed by the inevitable frustration of the unsatisfied predator. Art Garfunkel's Sandy, a softer mask with a safer route for the same ultimate path. Then Anne-Margaret, an Oscar-nominated collapse. Her Bobby shifts the entire weight of the film, transforming detached observation into a stark, unsoftened emotional ruin. She's the film's powerhouse. Nichols tightens the frame as the years pass, interiors become cages, silence lingering where connection should exist. No dramatic release, only the slow wearing down of the flower power 60s dream into the cynical fractured reality of the early 70s. Carnal Knowledge is a deliberately difficult object, stripping away the optimism of its era and replacing it with the grim realization that change without evolution leads nowhere. The Indicator 4K handles the material with complete confidence, no reinterpretation, just a precise, respectful presentation of a film that has aged very well with its timeless themes. That's all from us at The Last Disc on Earth, and remember, come the apocalypse, physical media will prevail. Cliff in Colour captures the calculated attempt to replicate the Elvis Presley cinematic template for British audiences with local pop star Cliff Richard. These Technicolor musicals represent a specific era of UK pop culture transition, where Cliff was positioned as the sanitised, homegrown alternative to American rock and roll rebellion. The collection, comprising The Young Ones, Summer Holiday and Wonderful Life, is a vibrant documentation of the pre-Beatles pop landscape. While the narratives are thin, designed solely to facilitate high-energy musical set pieces, they remain significant relics of a time when the British film industry sought to weaponise teenage fandom into box office gold. And now Indicator have released this very colourful box set, surprisingly in the US only. The Blu-ray set utilises 4K restorations from Studio Canal that present a frustratingly mixed bag in terms of restorations. The Young Ones emerges as the technical standout, maintaining a filmic integrity with decent grain levels, despite colours that lean towards the oversaturated. Summer Holiday follows a similar trajectory. The image is heavily contrasted and saturated and looks dated with its digital remastering, yet it largely succeeds in capturing the bright, travelogue aesthetic of the production. The outlier is Wonderful Life. Studio Canal's treatment of this title suggests they struggle with a variable quality original negative. Rather than allowing for visual inconsistency, the restorers opted for a digital veneer, layering on extreme contrast and a thick, chunky artificial grain. The result is a presentation that feels upscaled and sharpened rather than restored, particularly during the credits, which bear the hallmarks of an upscaled DVD source. It is a digital approximation of film that prioritizes a uniform, aggressive look over authentic analog quality. Despite all of these shortcomings, the encoding from Fidelity In Motion, who do all of Indicator's releases, is first rate as usual. The trilogy follows a rigid formula of youthful optimism versus stodgy authority. In The Young Ones, Cliff plays Nicky, the son of a ruthless property tycoon who leads a youth club in a bid to save their community centre from his father's bulldozers, staging a variety show to raise the funds. Summer Holiday shifts to a lighter tone. 4 London bus mechanics convert a double-decker into a mobile hotel, driving across Europe and picking up a trio of singing girls and a runaway American starlet. Summer Holiday is a beloved British favourite, the second biggest film in the UK in 1963 behind James Bond's From Russia with Love. In Wonderful Life, we find the troupe shipwrecked in the Canary Islands, where they inadvertently stumble onto a film set and end up replacing the cast in a sprawling desert epic. While the movies themselves are light to the point of transparency, the musical numbers act as the structural spine. Cliff lacks the dangerous charisma that defined Elvis's early screen presence, but he remains a technically proficient and very engaging musical performer. The choreography of the dance numbers, backed by the sheer energy of the Shadows' accompaniment, provide a gusto that the thin scripts don't really compete with, and yet these films utilise the wide Technicolor frame to showcase the peak of the British beat era, prioritising the variety show format over cinematic storytelling. Whilst each of the films are probably 30 minutes too long, pushing towards 2-hour running times as opposed to a more suited 80 minutes, they hit their briefs and were huge successes. Cliff in Colour is a fascinating chronicle of the British musical's last gasp before the hurricane arrival of the Beatles in A Hard Day's Night. While the Studio Canal restorations vary from filmic to overly digitally processed, the Indicator set is a beautifully looking and fun collection for those tracking the history of 60s pop cinema. It captures a performer doing his best to fill a larger-than-life template, a series of films that are as bright and occasionally synthetic as the era that birthed them. That's all from us at The Last Disc on Earth, and remember, come the apocalypse, physical media will prevail. Jerry O'Hara's The Brute is a harsh confrontational slice of 1970s British exploitation, ugly by design and difficult to shake. Beneath its grindhouse exterior sits a film that zeroes in on domestic abuse with an almost clinical bluntness. There's no glamour here, no dramatic cushioning, just a cycle of violence presented with a cold, matter-of-fact intensity. It's also deeply of its time. The film's perspective is conflicted, part critique, part exploitation, creating an uneasy tension between what it wants to say and how it chooses to show it. What remains is a bleak, uncomfortable watch that still lands with force, and now Indicator have restored the film for a fresh audience. Indicator's limited edition Blu-ray treats The Brute with far more care than its origins might suggest. Sourced from a new 4K of the original negative, the presentation is clean but resolutely filmic, retaining the grit, texture and muted palette that define its look. Grain is stable, detail is consistent, and the encode holds up under scrutiny. Crucially, the set includes multiple versions, the more explicit export cut, and the UK pre-release version under its original title, The Brute Syndrome. As ever with Indicator, there are strong contextual extras and a release that reframes the film as something worth preserving, not just consuming. This is boutique physical media doing the heavy lifting. The story follows Diane, a successful model trapped in a violently abusive marriage to Teddy, a wealthy, respected man whose public image masks something far darker. Her attempts to escape are met with indifference at every turn. Friends, institutions, society itself, no one wants to intervene. When she finally finds refuge, the film shifts into something more primal, a pursuit, as Teddy begins hunting her down with a chilling sense of entitlement. O'Hara directs with a detached, almost observational style. There's no attempt to stylize the violence, it's presented plainly, which makes it harder to process and harder to dismiss. Sarah Douglas anchors the film. Her performance carries a quiet resilience that cuts through the material, grounding it even as the film veers into exploitation territory. And that tension never disappears. The film condemns abuse, but still leans into nudity and sensationalism in ways that undercut its message. It's a contradiction baked into the era. Visually, it's pure 70s Britain, grey, flat, suffocating, a world where respectability shields brutality, and silence protects it. The real horror isn't just Teddy, it's how easily he exists within the system. The Brute isn't an easy watch, but it hits hard. Indicator delivers the definitive version of a film buried deep in the darker margins of British cinema, presented with a level of care that demands attention. Some films entertain, this one confronts, and for collectors, it's essential. That's all from us at The Last Disc on Earth, and remember, come the apocalypse, physical media will prevail. To approach Daniel Taradesh's Storm Center is to witness Bette Davis at a jagged professional crossroads. Released in 1956, it was Hollywood's first overt high-gloss counterattack against the McCarthy-era witch hunts, a film that trades the usual studio safety for a direct, unapologetic plea for intellectual freedom. While often dismissed for its didacticism, the film remains a vital artifact of civil courage, featuring Davis in a role that Mary Pickford reportedly abandoned out of political fear. Storm Center is a work of calculated, heavy-handed morality that feels less like a 1950s relic and more like a mirror held up to our own contemporary climate of book banning and digital excommunication. The narrative centers on Alicia Hull, played by Bette Davis, a widowed librarian who has spent 25 years as the moral and cultural anchor of her small town. Her life is upended when the local council demands the removal of a fictional book titled The Communist Dream from her shelves. Davis delivers a performance of rigid, diamond-sharp principle, portraying Alicia as ruthless, determined, and most importantly, someone willing to stand by her own convictions. While the script's parallels to McCarthyism were immediate in 1956, its relevance today is arguably more profound. The film deconstructs the tyranny of the majority with a surgical, if somewhat blunt precision, showing how easily a community can turn on its own when fear is weaponized as a civic duty. Alicia Hull isn't a communist, she's a librarian who believes that a free society must be strong enough to withstand even the ideas it finds repellent. This dichotomy of the dangerous book versus the dangerous act of suppressing it is the film's central, pulsating conflict. It is a stark reminder that once the matches are struck for one set of ideas, the rest of the collection is rarely safe. For the collectors, the Indicator Blu-ray release is faithful to the original materials as best it can. The studio scenes are preserved nicely with fine grain and decent detail, however some exterior sequences are noticeably mastered from lower generation materials and show defects accordingly. Indicator Storm Center is still a very watchable and respectful presentation. A heavy-handed studio attempt at civic defiance, Storm Center goes to pains to remind us that a library isn't just a building, it's the front line of an unending war for the human mind. That's all from us at The Last Disc on Earth, and remember, come the apocalypse, physical media will prevail. Thirst isn't traditional gothic horror. There are no castles, no coffins, no romance. Rod Hardy's offbeat exploitation vampire film ditches the usual mythology and reframes vampirism as something far colder and more modern. Released in 1979, Thirst imagines blood drinking not as superstition or curse, but as industry, a sleek corporate takeover of the vampire myth. This is an unsettling clinical reimagining of horror, where immortality is managed by committees and blood is treated as a scalable resource. It's strange, austere, and deeply offbeat, and unlike almost any vampire film that came before or since. Released by Indicator as a very welcome 4K UHD upgrade restored by Powerhouse themselves, Thirst arrives looking better than it has ever previously. The disc delivers fine, stable grain and a refreshed colour palette, supported by a strong bitrate that gives the image real depth and clarity. The presentation easily improves on previous home video releases, which often suffered from dated yellow-tinged masters. Indicator's upgrade restores balance and vibrancy, finally giving the film a presentation that matches its colourful, albeit controlled aesthetic. Thirst treats vampirism as science rather than as supernatural. Here, a global syndicate reduces human beings to biological assets, graded, harvested, and exploited for the blood they possess. Fangs are replaced by needles, gothic rituals give way to boardroom strategy. If you're looking for jump scares or gothic theatrics, look elsewhere. This is horror rooted in efficiency, the terrifying calm of an organisation that has fully industrialised its appetite for blood. The story follows Kate Davis, a woman abducted and informed that she is the biological heir to the 16th century murderer Countess Elizabeth Bathory. Kate becomes the crown jewel of the Brotherhood, a cult of elite executives seeking to scale their operation globally. The film swaps traditional horror iconography for sterile interiors and monochromatic spaces where menace comes from process, hierarchy, and control rather than spectacle. Backed by a percussive direct score from Brian May, Thirst unfolds as a slow, institutional grind. Chantal Conturi carries the film convincingly as Kate, playing her as conflicted and resistant to her inherent role. David Hemmings and Henry Silver provide the film's cold authority, portraying the so-called vampires not as monsters, but as ruthless corporate power brokers. The plot arguably hits the brakes just as its final act should ignite, but Thirst survives on its sheer audacity and conceptual originality, a vampire film that replaces fear of the dark with fear of systems. Thirst is an essential addition to any exploitation shelf, not as a cult novelty, but as a genuinely original rethinking of vampire cinema. Its vision of vampirism as corporate industry rather than gothic horror remains strikingly singular. Indicator's 4K UHD release finally does the film justice, presenting it with clarity and confidence that fans and genre purists will appreciate. And that's all from us at The Last Disc on Earth, and remember, come the apocalypse, physical media will prevail. Director Otto Preminger is renowned for making morally complicated films that didn't shy away from the stark and lurid, such as Laura, Anatomy of a Murder and Bunny Lake is Missing, and here with Bonjour, Tristesse, regarded as a lesser work but certainly not less interesting, he decamps to the French Riviera to shoot beautiful empty people destroying themselves in beautiful slow motion. Adapted from Françoise Sagan's scandalous novel, the story's light trappings centres on a luxurious, consequence-free summer and how what seems free and easy always ends up costing too much. Jean Seberg stars as Cecile, all pixie-cut arrogance and weaponised petulance, existing in permanent adolescence alongside her father Raymond, played by David Niven at his most dangerously charming and at his most David Niven self. To Raymond, life is an eternal cocktail hour, and Cecile is his favourite drinking companion, as the pair ensnare and take a bite of numerous lovers of all ages. It's a comfortable, decadent decay until Deborah Kerr arrives as Anne with a view to romance Raymond. Anne brings substance, grace, and worst of all, moral standards. She's the adult crashing the party and spoiling the fun, and Cecile responds as a rebellious animal in couture beachwear. Preminger's directorial style is unafraid to lean on gimmick. Whilst all present-day Paris sequences unfold in stark, mournful monochrome, the colour of regret perhaps, those Mediterranean flashbacks, lush, intoxicating technicolor, an Instagram filter of a dream curdling into one unending nightmare. Bonjour Tristesse earns its venom by refusing to apologise for anyone. Raymond isn't villainous, he's just swapped his conscience for charisma and his strong sense of desire. Seberg's Cecile is the inevitable damaged daughter, a girl taught to mix martinis but never shown how to care for a human. For collectors, Indicator's UK release of Bonjour Tristesse is definitive. This 4K restoration honours those legendary Technicolor blues and shimmering coastal heat, tight grain, impeccable encode, as one would expect from such a fine label, and zero digital tampering. It looks like a 1958 fashion editorial, and we feel like we are in 1958 gazing at it. Bonjour Tristesse, a cold-blooded masterpiece of style and surgical cruelty, a film that ultimately understands that beneath all glamour lies profound, immovable heartbreak. Hello sadness. That's us from Last Disc on Earth, and don't forget, come the apocalypse, physical media will prevail. Jean Rollin is frequently dismissed as a mere purveyor of fantastique erotica, but The Iron Rose, or La Rose de Fer, serves as the definitive corrective to that narrow vision. Released in 1973, it is a haunting, minimalist poem of a film, a descent into a gothic labyrinth where the only exit is madness. Abandoning his usual lesbian vampires, Rollin delivers a stark psychological horror that's a funeral march conducted in a dream. The premise is a fragile thread. A young couple, played by Françoise Pascal and Hugues Queste, decide to picnic in a sprawling, dilapidated cemetery on the outskirts of Paris. As evening falls, the mundane excursion curdles into a terrifying ontological trap. The cemetery ceases to be a location and becomes a predatory entity, an endless, shifting landscape of crumbling stone and forgotten names. Françoise Pascal is the film's chilling centrepiece. Her transition from a playful, flirtatious girl to wide-eyed high priestess of the macabre is a first-rate lesson in psychological disintegration, as Pascal finds a horrifying home in the decay. Opposite her, Keste represents the rational man's slow, whimpering collapse. A cinematic trial where the witnesses are the rusted iron roses on the tomb doors and the suffocating silence of the dead. Rollin's expressionism is potent, utilising the natural architecture of the cemetery to create a sense of subterranean claustrophobia. The camera lingers on the textures of oxidised metal and moss-covered granite, turning the environment into the film's silent antagonist. For a horror, there are no jump scares. Rollin instead prefers to present the film drenched in atmospheric dread, a slow-motion drowning in a sea of graves. For the collectors, Indicator has performed a vital rescue operation with their 4K UHD release, like they have for all of Rollin's masterworks. Sourced from the original negative, the restoration honours the film's specific, parched colour palette, the sickly greens and bruised purples of the French twilight. The encode is masterful, maintaining the thick, organic film grain that previous transfers smoothed into oblivion. It is a pristine, high bitrate look at a very dusty, beautiful rot. A haunting, cold-blooded masterwork of the macabre, the Iron Rose demonstrates that the most terrifying prisons are the ones we walk into willingly. That's all from us at The Last Disc on Earth, and remember, come the apocalypse, physical media will prevail. So that was The Last Disc on Earth's roundup of 10 Indicator titles worth owning. A label defined by consistency, strong transfers, careful curation, and a catalogue that rewards digging a little deeper. If you're building a collection beyond the obvious, Indicator is one to keep returning to. And that's all from us at The Last Disc on Earth. Don't forget to subscribe, and remember, come the apocalypse, physical media will prevail.